Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going deep on overthinking. And for this one, we're diving into a video called The Dark Power of Overthinking, Why It Ruins Your Life.
I don't know about you, but I could definitely relate to overthinking. Anyone else ever lie awake at 3 a.m. totally stressing about something that happened that day? It's like your brain just won't shut off. So let's start with the basics. What exactly is overthinking? I mean, we all think a lot sometimes, but when does it cross the line into overthinking territory?
You've hit on a key point. It's not just about the amount of thinking, it's the kind of thinking. The video makes a great distinction between helpful reflection and something psychologists call rumination. Like, think about reviewing a conversation you had at work to figure out how to communicate better next time. That's productive reflection. But if you're just replaying the conversation over and over in your head without any new insight, getting more and more anxious, that's rumination. Okay, so rumination is the bad kind of overthinking. The video mentioned rumination comes from the image of a cow chewing its cud, which, now that you mention it, is a pretty good visual for how these thoughts just go round and round. But what's going on in our brains when we get stuck in that mental loop?
Well, imagine your brain is like a computer.
Yeah.
When you overthink, it's like having way too many programs running at once. That can lead to a system overload, and things start to slow down and get glitchy. One part of the brain that gets overloaded is called the default mode node. It's basically the part of your brain that's active when you're daydreaming or thinking about yourself. At the same time, your brain's alarm system, called the amygdala, goes into overdrive, pumping out stress hormones like cortisol.
So it's like our brain is trying to do a million things at once and freaking out at the same time. No wonder overthinking feels so stressful. And I guess that's where the whole cognitive loop thing comes in.
Exactly. It's like a vicious cycle. Anxiety triggers overthinking, which triggers more anxiety. And sometimes this can lead to what's called analysis paralysis. Have you ever felt so overwhelmed by all the possible outcomes of a decision that you just freeze up and can't make any choice?
Gosh, yes, all the time. It's like my brain turns into this mental roundabout and I just keep going in circles.
That's analysis paralysis in action. And here's the ironic part. The video points out that overanalyzing often leads to worse decisions.
Wait, seriously. So the more we overthink things, the more likely we are to make bad choices. How does that work?
Because when we're in that overthinking state, we're not really thinking clearly. Our emotions and biases hijack our rational thinking. We might tell ourselves all sorts of stories about why we should or shouldn't do something, but those stories are often based on fear or distorted thinking.
That makes so much sense. It's like when you wake up in the middle of the night and everything seems 10 times worse than it did during the day.
That's a perfect example. When we overthink, we lose perspective, and our worries seem way bigger than they actually are.
Okay, so we've established that overthinking is this complex brain process that can really mess with our decision making. But it's not just a modern problem, is it? I mean, they didn't have smartphones and the internet back in the day, but people still probably overthought stuff, right?
You're right. The video touches on how this challenge has been around for centuries. Even ancient philosophers grappled with it.
Really? Like who?
Well, there were the Stoic, like Epictetus. He had this brilliant idea about focusing only on what you can actually control, which is such a good antidote to overthinking. If you're worried about something you can't change, it's just wasted energy.
That's a great point. It's like learning to let go of all those what-if thoughts that just spiral out of control.
Exactly. And it's not just Western philosophy. Eastern traditions recognize the power of thought too. The Buddha, over 2,000 years ago, identified obsessive thinking as a major source of suffering.
So it seems like no matter where you are in the world or what time period you live in, humans have always struggled with overthinking.
It really does seem to be a universal human experience.
Yeah. It's fascinating to me that overthinking isn't just something we do when we're stressed or facing a tough decision. The video suggests it can actually be linked to intelligence. Is that right?
You picked up on a really interesting point. The video explores this idea that sometimes intelligence can actually make you more prone to overthinking. It's like the very traits that make someone intelligent can also make them more likely to get caught in those mental loops.
That's so counterintuitive. You'd think being intelligent would make you better at handling life's challenges, not worse.
Right. But think about it this way. Intelligent minds tend to be really good at seeing patterns, anticipating problems, and analyzing things from multiple angles,
Right.
Which is great. But without the right tools and strategies, all that mental processing power can become overwhelming.
So it's like having a super powerful engine, but no steering wheel.
Exactly. And that's what the video refers to as the intelligence trap. It's this phenomenon where your intelligence actually works against you, making you more susceptible to overthinking, anxiety, and even depression.
Wow. So in a way, being really intelligent can be a double-edged sword.
It definitely can be. And the video gives some compelling examples of brilliant historical figures who struggled with this, like Charles Darwin, the guy who figured out evolution. He was so worried about how people would react to his ideas that he delayed publishing his work for years.
It's kind of sad to think about all the incredible things people might accomplish if they weren't held back by their own overthinking.
It really is. And it highlights the importance of understanding that intelligence isn't just about IQ or book smarts. It's also about developing the emotional and psychological skills to manage your thought and use your cognitive abilities in a healthy way.
Okay, so for all of us out there who relate to this intelligence trap idea, what can we do about it? How do we break free?
The good news is there are strategies that work. And they're backed by research, not just feel-good advice. One of the most powerful approaches is mindfulness. Have you ever tried mindfulness practices?
I've heard of it, but I'll admit the whole meditation thing kind of intimidates me.
It's not all about sitting on a cushion and chanting. Mindfulness is really about learning to pay attention to your thoughts and feelings in the present moment without judgment. So instead of getting swept away by a thought like, I'm such a failure, you simply observe it as it arises. Like, okay, I'm having the thought that I'm a failure.
So it's not about stopping your thoughts. It's more about changing how you relate to them.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, studies have shown that regular mindfulness practice can actually change the physical structure of your brain. You can literally rewire your brain to be less reactive to stress and more resilient to those overthinking patterns.
Whoa. That's amazing. I never realized mindfulness could be so powerful. But what about those really persistent negative thoughts that keep popping up? Like, what if you're stuck in those what-if spirals that keep you up at night?
That's where cognitive restructuring comes in. This is a technique that helps you identify and challenge those distorted thought patterns that are fueling your anxiety.
So it's about learning to recognize those negative thoughts and basically talk back to them with a more realistic perspective.
Exactly. It's like becoming your own thought detective. You examine the evidence for and against a particular thought, and you learn to develop more helpful interpretations.
I love that. It's like putting those negative thoughts on trial. The video also mentions something called scheduled worry time, which sounds kind of counterintuitive. Do you actually set aside time to worry?
It might seem strange, but it can be surprisingly effective. The idea is to designate a specific time each day, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, to just let yourself worry. Then, when those worries pop up outside of that designated time, you can gently acknowledge them and tell yourself, okay, I'll deal with that later during my worry time.
So it's like giving those worries a designated space so they don't take over your whole day.
Exactly. It helps to create a sense of control and containment around your worries, rather than letting them run rampant.
That's really clever. And it frees up the rest of your day to focus on things you actually enjoy.
Right. Now, here's another powerful tool that I personally rely on a lot: physical movement. Have you ever noticed how much better you feel after a good workout, even if you were stressed beforehand?
Oh, absolutely. When I'm feeling overwhelmed, a good run always clears my head. But I never really thought about it as a way to manage overthinking.
Well, there's a scientific reason for that. Exercise has a profound impact on brain chemistry. It releases endorphins, which have mood-boosting effect. And it helps regulate stress hormones like cortisol, which tend to go haywire when we're overthinking.
So it's like a natural antidote to all that mental stress.
It really is. And it doesn't have to be anything super intense. Even a brisk walk or a yoga class can make a big difference.
I think this highlights a really important point. Taking care of our physical health is crucial for our mental health, too.
Absolutely. It's all interconnected. Getting enough sleep, eating a healthy diet, spending time in nature, all of these things can have a positive impact on your well-being and your ability to handle those overthinking tendencies.
It's like building a foundation of resilience that helps you weather those mental storms.
Exactly. And speaking of resilience, the video really emphasizes the importance of developing something called metacognitive awareness. Essentially, this means being able to observe your own thought process, almost like you're watching a movie of your own mind.
So you're saying it's about noticing when you're starting to overthink, like, oh, there I go again, spiraling down that rabbit hole.
Exactly. And that awareness is so crucial because it creates a pause. It gives you a choice to respond differently instead of just getting swept away by your thoughts.
Okay. I'm starting to see how all these strategies work together. It's like building a toolkit for your mind. But if you had to pick one strategy that's been the most helpful for you personally, what would it be?
That's a great question. I think for me, it all comes back to mindfulness. Developing that ability to observe my thoughts without getting entangled in them has been a game changer. It's like creating a space between me and my thoughts so I can choose how I want to respond instead of just reacting automatically.
That makes sense. It's like learning to be the director of your own mental movie instead of just a character in it.
I love that. And the more you practice mindfulness, the easier it becomes to catch yourself when you're starting to overthink and to gently steer your attention back to the present moment.
It's like building a mental muscle that gets stronger with each repetition. But is there ever a time when, all those strategies fail and you just find yourself stuck in a big old overthinking rut.
Of course, we're all human, and there will definitely be time when those old patterns creep back in.
That makes me feel better, honestly. It's reassuring to know that even someone who studies this stuff still gets caught in the overthinking trap sometimes.
It happens to the best of us. But that's where those mindfulness skills come in. When you can catch yourself overthinking and not beat yourself up about it, that's when you know you're making progress. The goal isn't to never overthink again. It's more about changing your relationship with those thoughts.
That's so true. It's like learning to be more compassionate with yourself, even when your mind is being kind of a jerk.
Exactly. And I think that self-compassion piece is really important because it makes the whole process feel less daunting. It takes the pressure off having to be perfect.
So much of what we've talked about today really emphasizes that idea of self-compassion and acceptance. The video even talks about transforming overthinking into wise thinking, which I think is such a great concept. Can you tell me more about what that means?
It's about finding that balance between deep thinking and mindful presence. Wise thinking means you're able to reflect and analyze without getting lost in a spiral of anxiety. It's about learning from the past without dwelling on it and planning for the future without getting overwhelmed by worries.
I love that. It's like finding the sweet spot between head and heart.
Exactly. And I think that's really the key to a more fulfilling and meaningful life. When you can think clearly without getting bogged down in those mental loops, you have so much more mental energy to focus on the things that matter most to you.
This deep dive has been so insightful. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for managing my own overthinking.
Yeah.
And a lot more hope that it's actually possible.
I'm so glad to hear that. Remember, it's a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, but even small shifts in your thinking can have a big impact. You don't have to do it alone.
That's a really important point. If someone's feeling really stuck, are there resources you'd recommend?
Absolutely. If overthinking is really impacting your life, a therapist can help you develop personalized strategy and work through those deeper patterns. And there are so many great books and online resources that offer mindfulness techniques and cognitive behavioral therapy exercises. It's really about finding what works for you.
That's encouraging to hear. This conversation has been so helpful, and I know our listeners are going to get a lot out of it. Is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with?
Just remember, you have so much more power over your thoughts than you realize. The dark side of overthinking may have influenced your past, but it doesn't have to dictate your future. Every time you notice yourself overthinking and choose to respond differently, you're literally rewiring your brain and writing a new story for yourself.
What a great way to put it. And speaking of rewriting stories, I love how the video ends with that quote from Epictetus. We suffer not from events, but from the stories we tell ourselves about them.
It's such a powerful reminder, isn't it? We have the power to choose how we think about things and to create a more peaceful and fulfilling internal world.
This has been such an incredible deep dive. Thank you so much for sharing your with us.
It's been my pleasure. I hope everyone listening feels empowered to take control of their overthinking and start writing a more hopeful and joyful story for themselves.
And that's a wrap on another deep dive. Until next time, remember to be kind to yourself. Keep learning, diving